Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this Monday, February 16th. Taking another quick look, as we like to always do, to start our Wave News Extra live streams. Traffic looking smooth, moving calmly if the image doesn't freeze on us, but I'm sure it'll come back. But still, hey, a quiet night will take milder and calmer versus wintry and blustery and cold. Always appreciate you joining us, whether that is through the Wave Now live stream on your smart TVs or on the different streaming apparati. I'm struggling on the word on that one, but nonetheless, appreciate you folks. I'm Jose Sosaya. By the way, a special shout out to anyone joining us from Nelson County or Bardstown. Did spend a little time in the morning, so it was a long day for me getting to put a story together that I'm excited to work on, and think you'll enjoy it when it is ready. It's gonna be pretty cool. So let's get right to it for some things, while maybe you're going to dip in between all the Olympic action on Wave and all the different platforms there. Want to get to some quick updates. You did probably get the alert sent to your phones of, the unfortunate outcome. It's a deadly crash that was confirmed on I-65 North not too long ago. Kentucky State Police telling us the name of the victim. Unfortunately, he ran into the back of a semi-truck, 29-year-old Drew Cookenmaster. So this happened just before 10 this morning. If you were familiar, knew of anybody who might have been around on the interstate around that time, it was around near the Joe Prather exit. Police, the troopers tell us, unfortunately, this 29-year-old Drew Cookenmaster did die right there. The driver of the tractor trailer was not hurt, but the interstate, maybe you were caught in this, was closed for 3 hours while crews worked the scene. As now everything is trying to be sorted out. Unfortunately, just the tragic and deadly circumstances, that part of I-65. Speaking of what could have been, in some cases, they are very tragic, deadly circumstances, but only in month 2 of 2026, we've been now wanting to corroborate with some of the data that, at least, within Louisville Metro LMPD, the data that they're tracking, that it is trending, unfortunately, toward being another triple-digit year for homicides recorded. Louisville's mayor and LMPD's chief, Paul Humphrey, have repeatedly been saying that together the partners are taking steps to try to stop violence in the city. But in looking at the numbers on the Metro Violence Dashboard, which is a tool that you all could also reference at home, these types of crime, you can see the patterns that are playing out. And you can also corroborate this where we looked at and we cited on wave3.com and our reporting, guys, when we zeroed in on non-deadly shootings and homicides for the years 2025 and just now, through what's been of 2026 through the month of February. Last February, there were 31 homicides and non-deadly shootings. This year, by this point, that number's already been passed. We're still only through half of February, but that metric has already surpassed what the same time period was from 25. And then far beyond the numbers, of course, are actual lives, the people you might know or hear about out there who were impacted, the families who are also hurting and left behind. To that point, even an even greater window to show the devastation of what the impact is. So our reporting team looked at actually the numbers going back all the way to 2020. So if you go from there to 25, 3,600 people in total shot in Louisville, and that's just in what LMPD is in charge of, just the data that's collected through Metro. Of them, more than 2,700 people did survive, but they've been enduring years of emotional and physical trauma. And then there could be thousands more who are traumatized by that loss of a loved one, a husband, a wife, a mother or father, every other kind of friend or family member in between. We noticed recently that there's a push now by the Office of Violence Prevention. For example, you might be noticing some billboards being posted telling survivors of gun violence that, yes, it changes you forever, but you don't have to face it alone. So tonight, our Wave News reporter David Mattingly wanted to look into what this means to offer survivors this kind of help that is much needed.
19 months ago, Chloe Denning was enjoying a summer afternoon with friends when she became an innocent bystander, a victim of gun violence.
Well, 16 staples on my stomach. And I had a breathing tube and a feeding tube as well.
Her physical injuries were not the worst of her problems. Like many survivors, Chloe struggled with anxiety and a loss of confidence. Her body healed, but she couldn't handle loud noises or crowds. Once studying to go into nursing at U of L, Chloe had to drop out, a decision that still upsets her.
So it did make me a little bit emotional. Like I said, I thought I was going to be behind everybody else and the world was going to keep moving without me.
Chloe's emotional recovery didn't begin until she found someone who had been through it before. Nicole Magruder's son was shot and killed in 2022. She became a mentor to guide Chloe and others like her through the minefield of trauma.
You deal with a sense of guilt, hurt, pain, loss, and you kind of feel like you've passed away as well.
And the last 6 years alone could have easily left thousands of Louisvillians struggling in silence and solitude. These new billboards advertise free support services for survivors of gun violence, a partnership between the Metro Office of Violence Prevention and Maryhurst Renewal.
Individuals who contact us will be connected to a peer navigator. That peer navigator is an individual who's walked that path themselves. And so they can walk right along with that individual to access resources, but also be there as an emotional support.
Finding that support was a turning point for Chloe Denning. She now asks for patience and kindness for herself and the many who could follow.
It's something that you would never honestly expect you would have to go through, or you wouldn't expect that it would happen to you if it did. And it can honestly happen to anybody.
Our thanks to David for that report. And there is much more information available if you'd like to learn, for somebody or for yourself, how to find those connection points. We did want to, reference you to those links on wave3.com. So always, as I remind you folks, the best tool that we kind of will send everything there so you can always check in on, the information that we're updating in real time. And you can just kind of, go through these denser stories and all this information at your own pace, which you're more than able and ready to do so. In the realm of gun violence, we did have an update for you also, because we're learning from earlier today. This is a woman who's the stepmother of a teenage suspect in a deadly shooting. Well, she made her own first court appearance today. Her name is Jill Brooks Gilliland, arraigned on several charges, but of note in this case are what are called hindering prosecution or apprehension, so basically interfering in that regard, and then making a false report. Her bond was set at $50,000. Court documents reveal police found several messages between Brooks and a teen who was arrested in the death of 20-year-old Milton Ritchie. This is a mugshot of Brooks Gilliland. That teen is accused of asking Brooks Gilliland to burn his clothes and to report that he went missing. Police then say the woman here agreed to do that for him. The two other minors, they're under 18, and then a third person, Deontay Hodges, 20-year-old Hodges, have all been arrested in connection to the murder, which will likely be a case we're going to follow very closely with a fine-tooth comb as that plays out whenever the process does in court. Speaking of a trial that is already in full swing with so much testimony, countering arguments over in southern Indiana, you've likely noticed this is where we've had our Logan Perrone and some other of the reporting staff, for example. This is the trial of Isaiah Page. We know the deadly consequences of that shooting in 2024, where Bryce Gerlach was shot and killed. Over the last 2 days of testimony in particular, there have been several people who took the witness stand who say they were with Page that night. And in particular, as Logan describes it, their lack of answers to the jury is particularly noteworthy. For example, there's one person called to the stand today that was Demarius Gardner Person. He's someone who pleaded guilty last year to obstructing justice and aiding a criminal. Now, to this jury, Person said that he drove himself, Page. This is Gardner Person's own girlfriend, who is a minor we're referring to over the course of our reporting as someone who's named SB, and then the fourth person to Harvest Homecoming the night the shooting happened. But after that, nearly every question he answered was, quote, "I don't remember," or "I can't remember." But that is despite the fact Person gave a sworn deposition a little more than 3 weeks ago to answer those same questions, and he did so. This is similar, though, to the other man who drove with Person and Page, who went to harvest that night. Both men, all they did was testify that they knew Page, but they seemingly could not remember what happened that night. Prosecutors entered Person's statements and deposition for the record so the jury could read that for themselves. And then after the lunch break, our Logan Perone reporting the Gardner person did plead the fifth outside of the presence of the jury. So that was whatever legal advice was given in that regard, something to consider as we'll continue to play, or at least, sit in the courtroom to see what the jury's decision is in playing this out. So a lot to get through, but rest assured, we'll send you those updates as we get them and try to pass them live. Because remember, in that courtroom, we don't have the benefit of the camera, but we do have our ability to take the notes and pass that information along. Much more to get to tonight in our live stream of Wave News Extra, including some thoughts about the potential negative consequences that we've been reporting of this, need to tackle the JCPS budget deficit. And tonight, what you're going to hear is the perspective of, the school campus officers and safety administrators about, how they might be part of that group that is negatively impacted. You might call it some form of the collateral damage of the decision for the vote. You're going to hear from them and much more coming up on the other side of the break. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Really, that 3 million means more than the buildings being safe?
That is the rhetorical question coming from some JCPS safety administrators tonight. And some of them who work for Jefferson County Public Schools say getting rid of them to try and fix the district's budget crisis. And yes, it is a $180 million plus crisis. But they're arguing this is going to make schools less safe. District leaders, you've been following us, along with us in our reporting of these pretty monumental decisions. But they made the decision to actually end the school safety administrator program. Leaders say this move is going to save JCPS about $3 million. But Wave News reporter Fernando Garcia Franceschini explains the cuts are being met with those serious safety concerns, specifically honing in on some key, timeline we've learned in our reporting. So the safety administrators who talked to Wave News say they were first told by the district they'd cut half the program, but then less than 2 weeks later, they were told the whole program was going to be gone. Currently, there is at least one safety administrator in each JCPS school. And the people who Fernando talked to today say this is a program that has proven to work and has been paying off.
As a former law enforcement officer, Emery Richardson felt like the school safety administrator job was the perfect fit for him.
No one told us after year 4 they would be doing away with us. All the reports that we were getting was, hey, Great job. Keep up the good work.
But even with the stellar reports, JCPS leaders decided to cut the program as they tried to address a $188 million budget deficit.
You're taking away key components that are essential to the safety of the building in order to make a budget work.
Safety administrators tell me their job is prevention focused, meaning they work in the schools to prevent incidents from happening in the first place. Part of their job includes school-specific threat assessment and managing weapon detection systems. They also work to build healthy relationships with their students.
So I think students are not they're losing an advocate for them that they have come to know, trust, and they understand that job role.
Curtis Moss says that those responsibilities will likely fall on assistant principals or counselors. And Richardson says that this will hurt the learning experience in school.
The teachers don't come to school to teach to be bodyguards, counselors, mentors.
And that was our Fernando Garcia Francischini reporting there. School administrators have been told that they can't apply for a new position. So this is the safety administrators can apply to fill another role. It would be called the risk assessment coordinator would be the official title. But with this job, there's two components to this that are different. They'd have to travel to several schools instead of focusing on only one. So you'd have to set up a footprint and relationships on several campuses. But that's one. And number two is they'd have to take a pay cut of about $30,000. So those are decisions that these safety administrators are going to have to process now if they wanted to continue performing and serving in that kind of role. Let's take you now to this update out of Round County schools. They're going to pay $3 million to settle a sexual abuse lawsuit. So this was filed back in May of 2023 on behalf of a former high school athlete. The lawsuit was claiming this student endured repeated acts of grooming, sexual abuse, harassment by a teacher and a coach, Andrew Zahari, from when they were 14 up until she was nearly 18. The lawsuit also claims that school administrators failed to act even though they had knowledge of the abuse and then failed to protect the student. So on multiple fronts there, court documents even went so far as to say the former principal, Jordan Mann, had received at least 8 separate reports of such abuse. As for Andrew Zahari, he was sentenced to 22 years prison back in July 2024, and that was for producing child porn in relation to the case. The school district says its attorneys would conduct training this fall about the responsibility that school workers have to avoid this type of behavior and that they have to report that to the appropriate authorities. And in another very bizarre, troubling, and disturbing allegation case out of Laurel County, it's a man who's accused of having a torture chamber, and he's now pleaded guilty to at least drug and firearm charges. His name's Scotty Shelton, arrested August of last year. Police did a search of his property. They found 6,000 oxycodone pills, 1,200 grams of meth. But in the search, officers say they found a white metal structure on the property that smelled like something was decaying in the inside of that structure. Deputies say they found a cell-like room that appeared to be a, quote, torture chamber with handcuffs, ropes, and other devices. Deputies also reportedly found a deer carcass inside, along with several firearms, what appeared to be a human bone buried in that structure's garage. Shelton's minimum for all this is it could be 10 years. The max is he could be spending life in prison there behind bars. What we're going to do now is, as we take a quick look, actually, I was going to bring up something else. I was getting ahead of myself. Let's bring you back here into the studio. There's another story I wanted to let you all know about. It's actually about the impact the wave troubleshooters have had, which now has actually gotten the attention of national lawmakers. This was something brought up by Congress people who don't represent Kentucky or Indiana, but our investigation, the troubleshooters into improper electrical repairs at the New Albany Housing Authority, now it is getting attention from Congress. The troubleshooters interviewed a maintenance worker who blew this whistle on wire repairs meant to fool HUD inspectors, HUD. At 5 of the apartments where we as troubleshooters were allowed inside, there was improper wiring, which an expert described as a shock hazard and a fire hazard. Congress was actually holding a hearing on the government's oversight of public housing authorities just last week. And that is when Nebraska Congressman Mike Flood asked about Wave 3's story to the Indiana Deputy Attorney General responsible for protecting homeowners.
we are hearing concerns that the New Albany Housing Authority instructed maintenance workers to do shoddy fixes in an attempt to actively mislead inspectors. Can you commit to having your office look into these allegations?
Congressman, I would very much appreciate if you would share that information with us, and we'd be happy to correspond with you about that.
And that would be exactly what our troubleshooters were reporting on what was discovered. We did reach out to the AG's office to see if it has opened an investigation looking at our findings. The New Albany Housing Authority's Board of Commissioners does meet also this Wednesday at 4 o'clock. We'll make sure to follow up with you all on that. In the meantime, we're going to take a quick break for another reset, and we'll be back with the last round of stories for tonight's Wave News Extra live stream. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us, everyone. Jose Sosaya here in the Wave Now studio. For those of you who have downloaded the Wave News app, you might have gotten a push alert with some breaking news coming in about this mistrial in the Louisville Urban League's former CEO who had sued her organization. She claimed that she was wrongfully fired, but it seems the jury was split 6-6 on this matter. So because of that, it means it's a mistrial. Our Mark Stevens has been diligently reporting on this. You can read the article with much more of the context of the back and forth, the she said, and, you know, the plaintiffs and the defense in this case, I should phrase it that way. But encourage you to get the breakdown there of what the context has all been on the Wave News app. An amazing tool to have. Also, probably, as I'm thinking about it, just off the top of my head, in the world of movie lovers out there, I know the passing of Robert Duvall at 95, probably something you all were thinking about. Something worth shouting out if there was a favorite movie that you all had of his over an incredible career and a filmography. Just curious to see if you all wanted to chime in, if you wanted to think about your favorite Robert Duvall movie, and we can wrap up on that as we put a bow on tonight's live stream. Just would be something interesting to hear your opinions on that. Couldn't let the day go by without talking about how the morning started and even part of the afternoon, because the dense fog, couldn't escape it depending on where you had to drive out of home and getting to work or school. There was even a pretty cool time lapse that we've been showing, and the storm tracking team has also been showing it, about how the fog so quickly moved in and hung around. That also does lead to some risks when you're out on the road, but it was especially hard for folks out in Hardin and Bullitt counties. We spent some time there as drivers were dealing with the lane closures on I-65 North. 2 crashes, the one deadly we referenced at the very top of the live stream, that led to the highway having to shut down for several hours. And as Wave News' reporter Kirsten Foote is breaking down some of that timeline for us, a lot of you had to figure out another way to get where you needed to go. So this is just a bit of a recap of how this fog really did put a wrench in Monday.
Travelers coming north on I-65 had a long morning commute dealing with dense fog and heavy traffic. Many found a reprieve at a local store. Traffic on I-65 North near Lebanon Junction came to a screeching halt early Monday morning after a semi overturned, causing all lanes to be blocked, meaning many drivers had to take a detour while others were stuck on the interstate waiting for crews to clear the scene. For those who were able to detour, some stopped in the Bullitt County supermarket. That's where Stephen Hawkins works.
They were in line a long time, and we're just happy to find a place to kind of get out and walk around and use the restroom if they needed to and stuff like that. So they were happy that we were here. So just happy to just kind of get out of the traffic.
Monday's dense fog serves as a reminder that if you do run into fog, be sure to take it slow, use your low beam headlights, and if needed, pull over to a safe parking spot. Kirsten Foote, Wave News.
Some other things to break down for you. You could see some construction over at Churchill Downs, and it's going to be a change ahead of the Run for the Roses. The timing, of course, it's apt and it's appropriate. So what's new this year, if you're seeing from this view in the skies, so the track is upgrading its big board with new 8K monitors. This is our SkyTrack camera, partially getting that first shot, some of the work that was happening. Crews started switching out the screens already. They're going to continue to do it over the next couple of weeks. Churchill Downs did debut that big board back in 2014, even going so far as to call it the world's largest 4K video board. And it is about the size of 3 NBA basketball courts. So massive, to say the least. We're going to switch over now to a bit of Olympic fun and sort of a relatable moment from a pop star and a hip hop star right here.
Y'all know what time it is. Boy, I'm out of here. Ain't my fault.
Okay, well, a lot of celebrities in Italy for the 2026 Winter Olympics. That was none other than rapper Flavor Flav. He was serving as the hype man for the U.S. bobsled and skeleton teams. But during this promo shoot in Cortina, and you could see there was a bit of a almost, this is the beauty sometimes where you could go back and rewind and pause it. So I want to see, do you see there's kind of a split there on the handle? So worth pointing out. But obviously then what happens after is you see Flavor Flav loses balance, fall. He rips off that part of the sled. It was on camera. Flav arguing that that was not his fault. Just worth pointing out that that crack already did exist, as maybe we don't know if that was there before he went in. So just curious and worth pointing out, I would say. All right, let's play the next video. Got to get that play going. The countdown is on for Bourbon and Beyond 2026. This year's festival lineup is going to be announced in a kickoff party on Wednesday night. It's going to be from 5 to 9 if thankfully you're off the clock already then. It's going to be at the Whirling Tiger. It's a free event to enjoy cocktails, live music, giveaways, all this kind of stuff, Bourbon and Beyond. If you already had it circled on the calendar, it's going to be this year, September 24th through the 27th. Love to, then discuss what that pairing is, having Bourbon and Beyond and Louder Than Life, what that means for music fans, and if anyone ever actually tries to pair that together. So you'll have to let us know when the time comes. One more story we're going to wrap up with tonight is courtesy of our OG Don G, our Wave News anchor Don G, talking about making ends meet. This is for anyone with student loans out there. Just a heads up about what could be coming down the pike, because the Federal Department of Education has been delaying garnishing checks for defaulted loans. But of course, many people are still struggling to pay off the degree and whatever that balance might be. Dawn sat down with a student advocate who's sharing tips about how to sort of navigate the current situation right now and what the policy might dictate. Here is Dawn's report.
There have been a number of changes made to the student loan system that have been very confusing to borrowers.
Jennifer Finetti is a college finance expert with Scholarship Owl, a personalized scholarship matching and management service tool. Finetti points out Changes in White House administration, the COVID pandemic, and the dismantling of the U.S. Department of Education have most likely all played a part in the chaos. The latest confusion, the announcement that students with loans in default would face garnishment of their wages starting in January 2026. That quickly changed with news the garnishments would now be on hold again.
The garnishments that were being discussed and that are now on hold would be impacting borrowers that are in default on their loans, that are at least 270 days late in paying on their loans.
President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill plans to start many reforms on July 1st. One of those reforms, implementing major student loan repayment. Benetti believes it's possible those garnishments will also restart then.
If you are somebody who is in default or is late in making your payments on your loans, you need to contact your loan servicer to get your loan into positive status.
If you don't know who holds your student loan, be proactive. Head to studentaid.gov. That is the official U.S. Department of Education website for managing federal student aid.
There are typically two ways that you can get a defaulted loan back into positive status. The first way is by working with your loan servicer to make a reasonable and affordable monthly payment for 9 months straight, consecutively on time.
If you talk to your loan holder and explain your circumstances, you may be able to agree on repayment options that satisfy both of you.
Another option to get your loan back into positive status is to consolidate your loans. Usually with that process, you need to make 3 on-time consecutive payments rather than 9.
Deciding not to pay the loan at all could mean financial self-destruction. Credit bureaus receive that information, which could affect your ability to buy a home, a car, or any other item on your list of dreams. The government can always come back to garnish your wages, tax refunds, or any other government payments.
You're actually hurting yourself because those debts will not go away. And in fact, it's very difficult to get student loan debt discharged during bankruptcy.
Our thanks to Dawn for making that very easy to follow along and break down. For anyone thinking about the looming shadow of garnishment, for example, and unfortunately it happens. But before that starts, the government has to send a 30-day notice to your last home address. The catch there, though, is you would then be on the hook if they can't find the right address and they still get you the notice. So it would then fall on you to let the provider or the parties involved know where you're living. So you would get that in your mail. If you don't know too much in depth of what's going on with your student loan, you could reach out to studentaid.gov. And if you do want to read more about it at your own pace, like I always say, the best tool is wave3.com. You can scroll up and down all the different tabs we've got updated with breaking news, the latest updates, original reporting, obviously our troubleshooters investigations that people will share often. This is information to empower the knowledge of maybe some things that are going on you may not have followed otherwise, even some, the national headlines, which are stories that we are all following in the case of Nancy Guthrie and the now focus on a suspect's backpack, as you can see there in that story. So always appreciate your time, folks, whether that's joining us by streaming, and that's on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and X. Also on our Wave Now apps through the different smart TV devices you've got at home, Apple, Roku, Fire Stick. Always good to connect with you all as we go about starting our week. And hopefully you've had a chance to debrief and, tuck in, stay warm, let's say, and relax a little bit more for the rest of the night. Always good to hear from that. All right, I'm Jose Sosaya. We'll see you back here tomorrow night. Until then, take care.